Hello and welcome to a quick tutorial. This one's for Moire. Um, Basically going to show you how to try and get rid of the moire or the pixel dots that usually comes with a scan. Um, Hard to avoid and important to know how to deal with them when it comes to it. So let's just crack straight on, open up this cover, and this is the cover we're going to be dealing with. Just chose this one because it happened to have a good example of moire on it. And again, first stage, as always, is to go around your cover and look for the worst case scenario of the moire. And the best way to do this, obviously, is how you would view the cover when it was scanned and printed. And that would be at actual pixels or 100% zoom. So this is how you would see the cover when it was printed out. So again, you go around the cover, and again you can see in these shadows, you can see the moire there. Across the darker areas of the face, again down the shadows of the face. You can especially see them on the title there, the lighter sections and the darker sections. So we've got plenty of moire across the entire cover here. Again, spine images, not so bad on this. On the banners you can see it. And as usual, you'll find on most covers, the steels or the screen caps at the back are usually the ones that suffer most. Not always, but usually they're the worst case scenario. And in this case, again, it is, as you can see by these faces and the images. Now, if we zoom in slightly more, it becomes more apparent what we're looking at. So this is the moire, or the pixel dots. And just quickly so you understand, moire basically it's an artifact of images that you get when using digital imaging, digital cameras, or some computer graphics, and when scanning, of course, half-tone pictures. It's an undesirable effect, but mostly unavoidable. So it's important to know how to deal with it. So as we can see, this is our worst case scenario, the screen caps at the back. Now we've zoomed in a little bit more, just so we can see pixel dots or the moire more clearly, so we know what we're dealing with. Now it's a very easy process, but unfortunately it's not a set process, as in I can say to you, put this setting in for the Gaussian blur, put this setting in for the unsharp mask, and everything will be fine. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. Every cover is individual. Some suffer a lot more than others, depending on what print is used, what type of printer, and the settings. But in general, it has to be done by eye. You have to visually see what you're doing, and you have to make the decision how far you've gone or how far you should have gone. So let's just go straight on. There's no shortcuts for this. You have to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. There's only one setting in Gaussian Blur, Radius. Now the radius is in pixels, and again, like I say, you have to do this by eye. There's no definite setting. But what I will say in general, there's two settings that seem to work pretty good on most covers, which is 0.5 or 1 pixel. Tend to use them most of the time. Sometimes you have to tweak a little bit higher or a little bit lower, but in general 0.5 and 1 are usually pretty good. So if we type in 0.5 as our radius setting for the Gaussian blur and look at the image, now you can see we have lost a lot of the moire on that. A lot of it's disappeared, but we've still got these round circular moire or pixel dots across the image. So we need to go a little bit further. So I'm just going to jump straight up to 1. As we can see on this image, we have lost pretty much all moire. Follow it across. As you can see, pretty good. Now don't panic, because you can see we've blurred it and it has taken away some of the crispness of the images, but unfortunately that's the process for dealing with moire. So we blur to get rid of it, and then we unsharp to try and bring back some of the crispness or the detail to the picture. So again, never go too far. If you start to lose too much detail, like so, then you've gone too far. You want it so we've still got detail in the image, but we've lost the moire, or most of the moire. So 1 on this particular cover is a good setting, so we'll click OK on that. Then we go to filter again, sharpen, unsharp mask. Now this is basically going to try and bring back some of our detail. So we've blurred the pixels, so we're basically smudging them to try and get rid of the moire, and then using the unsharp mask to try and bring a little bit of the crispness back. Again, not too much. If you go over the top with this, you can end up with weird effects like this. So just be careful. Now on on my settings, if you look carefully, the amount is 100% and the threshold is 5. Now I never adjust these. I always leave them the same. So amount 100%, threshold 5. If you're on a different, then obviously your radius settings will also be different to mine. So if you want to try and follow along with this, then I would advise sticking to 100% amount and 5 threshold. I tend to find that gets a good result overall. So as I say, I don't touch them. I always only adjust the radius. So again, as a rule of thumb, something to remember is whatever the setting was for Gaussian blur, we try to double in unsharp mask. Now that's not a rule as in set in stone, it's just a general advice that seems to work most of the time for me anyway. So if you remember, in Gaussian blur we set it to a setting of 1 pixel. So here we want to double it and we want to go to 2 pixels. So if you set your radius to 2, have a close look, make sure nothing's too much detail try to bring back. And in general that's pretty good. So if we click OK, and just to show you what we've done, if we go back to the first setting and see our moire all over the cover, this is the effect the Gaussian blur had. Blurred it away, and then the unsharp mask to bring back some of the detail, not too much. And that's probably easier to see on faces, because faces of characters are always the worst to suffer with moire and the effects of the filters. So again, back to the beginning, that's the moire. Gaussian blur takes away the moire, the unsharp mask brings back some of the detail. Now again, don't panic when looking at this one and think, oh my god, it's blurred. But yeah, it is blurred, but we are at 200% at the moment, and you're never going to view your cover at 200%. So if you click on actual pixels, you see it starts to look a lot better. Details pretty good, and the moire's gone. Again, quickly click back to how it was, and the final result. So in general, that's the job done. But what you have to bear in mind is, although we're zoomed in on the stills and we're dealing with them, you are affecting the entire cover. So you always need to zoom out, check around, make sure you haven't gone too far or overblurred something to the point of not being able to see it. And if you have, then decrease your settings or increase as necessary. So as you can see, we've done it across the entire cover and it's not too bad. Now, I'll show you this quickly. This is what most people will use, how they will use it. And if you go down to actual pixels and down to the legal text, this is what you need to keep your eye on. This is always going to be the thing that suffers most, is your small legal text, because purely of the size. Now, if you look at this, it's not too bad. It's pretty clear, it's readable. This would be accepted, no problem. But if you go back to how it was originally, can you see that? How crisp and clear that was before we done the Gaussian blur? And then the effect the Gaussian blur had on it, to the point of almost being unreadable. And then the unsharp mask managed to bring some of that back. But my theory is, if it doesn't need fixing, then don't fix it. So this is the way I would do it in general. First, let's make this background into a layer by double clicking on it. And then if you just go into the layer and right click, holding control and left click should I say, so control and left click, that puts the selection around the whole cover. Now what that basically means is anything we do, any filters or any adjustments we do will fall within that selection. So in other words, it will affect the entire cover. Now what I tend to do is if these sections that don't need doing, the legal text, I remove them from it. So if we go onto our rectangular marquee tool, and then up onto this setting which I've already got set, subtract, and then go down and place a box around your legal text, and again around any areas that you don't want affected. Now I'm using the rectangular marquee tool because these are square sections, so it's easy to do. So we don't want our barcode affected. There was no pixel dots or moire on that. Again with a spine on the white sections, no pixel dots on that, so let's take that out. And again down the bottom of the spine on the white section, on the DVD logo, take that out. Now the other thing I'd like to do is the text, but obviously you're not going to put a square box around that. So if you go to your lasso tool, again make sure it's set on subtract from selection. Zoom in if you need to, and then carefully draw a selection around your text. Basically I'm doing this because you don't want part of the image with the moire dealt with and part not with it dealt with, so we'll try and get as much of the text in without taking too much of the image out. Take your time on this, it affects the overall results, so it's worth taking your time to do. Again, zoom out, and we can even do this text here, although not so necessary because it's quite large and won't suffer as much. It's on a black section that hasn't got moire, so we'll take this out as well, just as an example. There we go. So if we zoom out, basically what we've done, we've got selections within the main selection of the cover. All the selections within have been retracted from the overall result. So basically anything we do now will not affect these selections within the main selection. So quickly again, I'm going to set those settings we've done earlier, which was filter, blur, Gaussian blur, still set at 1, okay, filter, sharpen, unsharp mask, setting at 2, okay. So we've done exactly the same as we did originally. We've dealt with the moire, as you can see, going down to the stills. All the moire is dealt with, but when we go down to the legal text, still crisp and clear, hasn't been affected. No problem there. And again, if I now get rid of this, put it back to normal selection, if you find that there's certain sections that still need to be dealt with the moire, such as this, then again just go on the add to selection, so you can put multiple selections, include that, include the FBI logo, because there's some moire on that, go over to the 20th Century Fox, there's moire on that, so we'll include that, don't want the text, and just basically go around anything that you retracted from the initial process that you think needs moire dealing with, and do it. So there we go. Now we'll deal with our logos. So again, filter, blur, Gaussian blur, too much. The original setting we used of 1 is too much for the logos, you see. So now we decrease it, 0.5. That's not bad. Okay that, and then go back, filter, sharpen, unsharp mask. Again, that's too much, so we go double what we did on Gaussian blur, so 1 in this case. Lovely. Logos are now crisp, clear, and no moire. Go back on the screen, get rid of your selection, and there we go. Cover dealt with. The only difference this time is we've only dealt with the areas that needed dealing with, and we've subtracted the areas that were affected that didn't need to be dealt with away from the equation. So now we have no moire across all the images, but all the text is as clear as it was originally. That's the way I do it. Takes a little more time, but I think the end results speak for themselves, so you decide. Anyway, that's it, job done. Any questions, feel free to PM me.